What's going on, guys? Good morning. Hope you guys are having a great week. Happy Friday to all of you here. Let's go ahead and get started. We got some good questions here. Let's see. We're going to start with Jonathan. Jonathan just asked a question about 30 minutes ago, so I wanted to answer that. These are actually pretty technical questions, so I bear with me while I go over it. Jonathan asks, hello, Paul. Have you ever gone through an implementation of recruiting software at your company, i.e. SuccessFactors, Workday, Taleo, and why is this software important to your company? Answer that question, Jonathan. Yes, actually all of them. SuccessFactors, Workday, Taleo. We implemented an ADP software. All of these softwares are basically called ATSs, or which are called applicant tracking systems. And to answer your question, why are they important to a company? When you have very high hiring volume, right? Let's say ADP payrolls 2/3 of Americans. They have a recruiting department of over 300 recruiters just for that particular company, and they have plus 5,000 jobs openings. So it's important for a company of that size and that magnitude to make sure that they track all the jobs that they have. They track all the candidates that they have, because there's candidates that apply to 50 different things. So that's a company of that magnitude. For us, we have 15 different recruiters working on different positions. We have over 50 positions that we're working on. So it's really important to understand who's working with what candidate, what phase of the interview process are they in, where that candidate is coming from. Are they coming from Monster? Are they coming from Career Builder? Are they coming from LinkedIn? Are they coming from ZipRecruiter? What resource or where are they coming from? In a sense, if we know that, then we can track where we're going to put our resources in and where we're going to put our hiring efforts in. So really what it is, it's think of an applicant tracking system as a CRM for the sales side, or for think of it that way. So you can manage all of your contacts and all of your processes within that space. So to answer your question, that's why it's really important, because you can't do everything on spreadsheets, you can't do everything on paper. So it keeps everything organized from where everything is going. Let's see. Second question Jonathan had was, what should business owners, small to medium-sized companies, be thinking about when identifying software to help them operate their business, i.e. functionality, integrations, data, legal, compliance, and others? My opinion on this is that we just actually went through a system implementation. We had systems all over the place. We had payroll, we had accounting, we had our CRM software, we had our ATS software, and they're all different softwares, and they didn't integrate with each other. The biggest thing that I look for is the ease and the usability of that software, right? So like I mentioned, we have about 15, 16 recruiters plus an employee base of over 50. So all of those people are using our payroll systems, are using time tracking, and they're using time off. They're using a whole bunch of things. What I wanted to do was kind of create a one centralized ecosystem for all those systems to talk. So what we basically did now is that, excluding our CRM software, for which is our sales guys use, everything is all integrated from this point. So we can kind of go soup to nuts, start to finish. So when we're recruiting, we have an ATS system, which we just talked about in the last question, that tracks the candidate from where they came in. Let's say they came in from Monster.com, they applied from Monster.com, and then we can track the whole entire process through their interview process and then their hire. So what happens is, that's one system, but that system also talks to another system, which is our onboarding system. So that onboarding system then shoots documents out. So this is one system shooting all the documents out that they need to onboard all of our new employees. And not only that, that system also talks to our background check company, so it's all seamless. After that, that system also talks to our payroll company and our accounting system. So all of that stuff is all integrated. And that system also does performance tracking. So when they do cross over into an employee, we can track their performance. We can track the reviews. We can track any of the evaluations. All of that is encapsulated into one system, all the way until offboarding, where they're no longer our employee, and even then we can shoot out all of their offboarding docs. So the main thing that I'm looking for, especially with my size company, which I would consider a small to mid-sized company, is that we're looking for ease, usability, and making sure that all the systems are in one place. Because really what you don't want to do is you don't want to make the end user or whoever's using your systems to be very, very cumbersome or redundant. You want to make it really easy on them so they can get back to the work that's actually generating revenue for your business. So that's why it's important. Jonathan also asked, have you ever run into challenges in attracting a diverse slate of qualified candidates? To answer your question, from my business, no, I never have. As far as a employee base around my area, I'm in Orange County, Los Angeles. I don't necessarily have that problem. It's a pretty diverse area around here. However, to go back in my previous career, I did work for a very large company, and we did have problems looking for a diverse slate of qualified candidates, particularly because our regulations were so high. There's a question that you're asking right after this, but I will say that because the company that I worked with had to be OFCC compliant, meaning that anyone that's an OFCC has to be in OFCC compliance. They're federal contractors. Basically, they're working with the federal government, and you have to hire through different stringent guidelines. So what we did is we had exclusive recruiting teams that were looking for diversity and inclusions. So what does that mean? So there was special recruiting groups and task force that would go to diverse populations of association groups like the Asian American student association at a college. So we would target that effectively, and we would make sure that we document those things so we can be in compliance. Again, you're never going to have a perfect mixture of diversity. However, you want to make sure that you're constantly showing the efforts. So that is basically what we did. We had different task force and going to different groups, different associations and colleges, professional groups, and what have you. The second part of that question is, if so, how can companies handle it to ensure that they meet equal employment opportunity regulations in the United States, companies with 100 plus employees or more? Okay, so the EEOC, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, was actually, just for a little background for everybody, is that commission actually started because of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which basically excludes any kind of discrimination to hire anyone based on sex, gender, religion, creed, color, and all those kinds of things, sexual orientation and all that kind of stuff. So you can't discriminate on that. From a private company, what you're asking me here is 100 plus employees or more. I think you might be thinking about how you stay in compliance. And the one thing for private companies on how to stay compliant, if they have 100 or more employees, is you got to, on a yearly basis, file an EEO1, which basically goes over your employee employee base and sees what's the mixture of ethnicity there. Now, as long as you're filing that, you're good. Second thing that I would recommend if you're trying to stay in compliance is that you put an equal opportunity policy inside your employee handbook. So if you have 100 or more employees, and again, if you EEO1 filing needs to be done with anyone with 100 or more employees, or 50 or more employees, and you're doing at least $50,000 in government contracts, right? So if you're working with the government directly. So if you file your EEO1 and you put a equal opportunity policy inside your handbook, that's generally what would help and would keep you compliant. Again, if you're working as a federal contractor, if you're doing work directly with the federal government, you need to stay, which is a secondary thing, which is another thing, is OFCC compliance, and that's a whole different guideline. So that's something that you might want to look in if you are working currently with federal government, or you're receiving any federal grants or federal contracts. Moving right along, let's go to Michelle. Michelle, good morning, she says. Good morning to you, Michelle. Our business is growing. as our business grows, we are going to be hiring more salespeople. Is it better to offer lower hourly pay and then commission compensations on sales, or straight salary? I'm just going to move all the comments out of the way here. Or straight salary. Good question. I know your business, so here's my answer to you. What I do is I do one or two things, right? So I would offer either a lower wage, like an hourly wage. I think we're about, I don't know, I'll give you an example. I think in California, we're about $11 an hour is minimum wage. So let's say I give them $12, and then I'd give them a pretty substantial compensation package. Because I think with any sales individuals, you want to make sure that they have the ability to make more money, because that's really what motivates a salesperson. That's why they get into sales to begin with, because they have the upswing potential and the potential to make more money. So I would offer a lower wage and then give them a pretty substantial or a pretty robust commission package that's not going to drastically affect your bottom line. That's what I would do. Now, what I do want to say for other people that have different products or different businesses, that's a little bit different. I preface the lower wage, higher commissions generally on most sales positions. However, there are sales positions that require a very, very long sales cycles, and this is generally like enterprise software, anything that's highly consultative, that takes about a year. Now that's a whole different story. Then I'd offer a pretty generous base salary and also a fairly generous commission packages, because the longer the sales cycle, generally the bigger the packages. They're selling $1, $2, $3, $10 million software packages. So most of the time, so to answer your question, most of the time I would say that, offer them lower wages and the big upswing potential for higher commissions, unless, you got a very long sales cycle. And the reason is that you need to make sure that they I don't know, pay their bills with a higher salary if the sales cycle is very, very long. If it's a more transactional basis, again, I would go to a lower salary. Now, the second thing that I mentioned is that you can also do a draw, right? So my company, all of my recruiters and all of my salespeople are on a draw. I give them a fairly generous, guarantee period, and then it's a draw. So like, let's say I pay someone $4,000 every month. What they get on a monthly basis is they either get the $4,000 or the commission, whichever is higher, right? So it's a draw. So really what it is full commission. However, you're giving them a guarantee period so you can get through those times, right? So either a draw or an hourly salary. Let's see. I think you had a second question. Okay, Michelle, you had a second question. What's the best pay structure to promote ownership in a company and pride in a job well done? Okay, so I'm going to assume here that you're saying how to promote like not actual physical or equity ownership stake in your company, but just like how to empower your employees. If that's not the case, then let me know. But I'm going to go with that assumption. So here's what I do. I think what you're trying to do is create a team environment where everyone's collectively trying to achieve company goals. So what I would do is, outside of your commission, create a bonus structure, right? So like actually a company bonus structure, or you can actually do an individual. So, but what I would do is I would separate that. So in their compensation package, let's say you're paying them this certain amount, right? I would say there's a 10% bonus at this certain amount of salary. So like, let's say they're making $100,000 a year, 10% bonus, and that's discretionary based on their performance and also based on company performance. So you can do half of that bonus can come from, so $5,000. So if it's $100,000, 10% bonus, $10,000 a year possible bonus. You can do $5,000 in their personal objectives, meaning that they have accomplished something, or they've hit a certain KPIs, which is your key performance indicators, or they've hit some kind of metric that allows them to get that bonus. And the second is a company bonus, basically. So your overall profitability after the year, if you hit your overall goal over your overall profitability over the year, then then they all share in that pot. So that tends to help ownership, because they get a bonus that's completely, over the whole entire company. So moving right along here. Thanks for the question, Michelle. Austin says, hello, Paul. Thank you for your time today. So it's a longer paragraph, so I'm going to summarize it. So basically, where Austin is he's created a prototype that's in the aftermarket automotive space, and what he's doing is he doesn't have a lot of capital to create this product. So what he's thinking about doing is outsourcing it to another manufacturer to make that product, so he doesn't have to buy equipment. And then what he's basically asking, is there a contract of some form that he needs to create, and things like that. Okay, so Austin, here's what I do. You're in prototype stage. You're in prototype stage right now. So if I were in your situation, I would outsource the product to someone else to develop it. The reason being is that you don't want to have a lot of fixed costs when you're on prototype stage, right? Really, prototype stage is you're still trying to figure out if it's viable in the market and if people are going to respond to it. The last thing that you want to do is that you want to incur a lot of capital fixed cost expenses, and then all of a sudden the market's not responding to your product, right? So if you back up a lot of things, which I'm pretty sure you've done, you do a proof of concept to see if it's actually viable in the market. If you can actually do it, if it can be accomplished, then you do your prototype. And sometimes you go to a minimum viable product, which they also called MVP. And then they basically what that is, it's basically a complete solution, a complete product that you can put out into the public and see their response. So again, just to simplify the question, yes, I would outsource it, because you do not want to incur any kind of capital expenditure on fixed cost, right? So your equipment and all those things, because you might need to pivot your product. Some people might like one functionality, some people won't, and you're gonna have to try to find that sweet spot for the market for your consumer base to get it. So with that being said, again, yes, I'd outsource it. I'd spend most of your time on design and research of the product and the viability of the marketplace. And then I would also spend more time in selling that product, right? Because if you're buying all this capital, fixed products, all this equipment, then you're gonna spend a lot of time trying to train machinists and all those kinds of things. What you need to do at this early stage of your business is make sure that you're out selling the product, seeing if the product is viable in the market, pivoting, and overall strategy. Once you get into a production basis, then start to buy equipment, because what you want to do is then reduce operating costs by bringing all the operations back in-house. But I don't think you're there yet. So go ahead and outsource that product until you get a substantial amount of production runs. Let's see. And then the other question is, I need a form of contract. Yeah, absolutely. If you're giving any designs to a subcontractor, yes. You can do that through a non-disclosure. That's basically what it is. You give them through a non-disclosure. Yes, you do need a contract in place. You do not want them to duplicate anything. I think at the very early stages, what I do recommend is that you use a local company that you can go to and see what they're doing from as far as a production standpoint. I know a lot of people are going offshore. There's a problem with that. If you're going offshore, then sometimes those confidentiality regulations don't hold up, and you can't see what they're doing as far as building your product. So again, outsource it, yes. Find a local manufacturer that can do it, so you can visit their facilities and check in on your product being built, and then have a non-disclosure agreement with them when you start. Thanks for the question, Austin. Jared, his question is, good morning, Paul. For about 6 months, I've been trying to acquire talent, self-motivated sales agents for my freight brokerage company. To an extent, I've been successful, but have yet to find that agent that hits it out of the park. We have provided support that just about all of our competition, we have provided more support than just about all of our competition when it comes to back office tools compensation. We have offered sign-on bonuses to smooth out the onboarding transition. Love to get your input on advice. Perhaps we're not using the right search tools, networking tools, things like that. Hey, Jared, you know what? Here's the truth. I have also yet to find someone that can start off and just knock it out of the park. I think that's a difficult thing to find. And just to kind of address that, I've never hired anybody that can come into my company or any other company that I work for and just hit it out of the park immediately. Trying to find those guys are very difficult because they need exact industry experience and they need a similar environment and workplace that they're working in prior to coming in, so they can acclimate and assimilate to your culture really fast. However, I do have a lot of people that hit it out of the park after a certain amount of training, right? So I have to kind of roundabout answer your question here. What you might want to do, because you did mention, and it just says you're alluding that you have back-end support tools and compensation. And what I've come to find is that sometimes compensation and tools, as far as systems and stuff, don't really lend to success of the employee. Sometimes, I paid people quite a bit much more money than some of my top performers in the past. And generally what I've come to find is that a lot of it has to do with training. So you might want to just take an inventory of how you're training your individuals. And I know there's a lot of great mentors in here that focuses on training, like Tom Black. I would try to figure out, just take an inventory of how you're training these guys, right? If you've been successful yourself at selling your services or products, then you should be able to transfer that to somebody else and have them repeat exactly what you're doing. And if you can put that in a training program or a training format, and then also make sure that you have metrics to keep them accountable, that's something you might want to take a look at. So first, maybe just take a look at your training program and how you're actually grooming your individuals to make sure that they're successful at your company. So that's one. Is there any right searching or networking tools? Yeah, there's a bunch, but you know what? There's a lot of pre-employment tools. There's a lot of recruitment tools out there, and you have to kind of take it. You can't look at any one of those as a silver bullet or a magic bullet to alleviate all your hiring needs and your headaches. All of those are just tools. They're tools in the tool shed that you have to use interchangeably, right? So some people say, okay, I'm going to use ZipRecruiter. Some people say I'm going to use Monster, Career Builder, LinkedIn, what have you, and it's the end-all, be-all of all tools. And it's really not. Really what it is, it's just a combination of all those kind of tools to make sure that you can get to the end result that you want, right? So the question is, again, to answer your question, and I know I'm not doing a great job of answering this question, is there is really no right searching tool or networking tool. The true trick is use them, right? And then you're going to start to see, because every position is different, use them. We use every tool that we can possibly afford that also creates impact, because one of those tools are gonna work, right? I guess it's like fishing. I don't know. You use different maybe I'm not a fisherman, but I think you use different kinds of bait for different kinds of fish, right? So one fish isn't attracted to something, and another fish isn't attracted to something. So that's what we do. We have a collection of different products that we use to find the right person. However, what I've always found that was pretty successful is networking with individuals, trying to find individuals. Like, I've always had in the back of my head that I have two positions that I'm constantly recruiting for all the time. Not because I have an opening, but I'm just constantly recruiting for them, right? Because if someone's great, I'm going to figure out a way how to hire them. So the two things that I'm always looking for, even if I don't have open positions, are a great salesperson and a great recruiter, right? So in my business, we're in recruitment. So I'm always looking at those two guys. So like everywhere I go, I start to network and get to meet people and see what these guys are all about, and really kind of get in and get under the hood with these guys and try to figure out if they would be good with my company. And if they would, then I start exploring that. So it's this constant networking process. It's this constant building my funnels of potential people that I'm hiring. So I would try that. Again, recap, take an inventory of how you're training your employees and how you're keeping them accountable, and also use a whole different slew of recruitment methods, from online job board searches. You can, depending on the level of position, you can use Craigslist or you can use ZipRecruiter. We do a lot of searches on LinkedIn, and we directly message people to see, based on their profile, if they fit some of the jobs that we're looking for. Networking events are good too. I would, if you're open to hiring, entry-level employees, get involved with the Career Center over there at your local college or local university. So, okay, we got one more question. Jared, thanks for the question. Again, hey guys, any time that you want to hit me up on direct message or anything, I'll try to provide some time so we can dive a little bit deeper. Again, building a team, recruiting a team, maintaining a team, it's not always cut and dry. So, sometimes we need to dive into the questions a little bit more, and I need to know a little bit more about the company. So, in your process. So again, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Flora, she asked, what is the number one mistake most people make when hiring team members? How could we avoid this? Flora, I don't know if there's a number one mistake. Quite honest with you, I think I made every single mistake in the book. Even up till now, I'm still making mistakes on hiring people. And I can probably write a book on all the different kind of mistakes that I have. So to pinpoint it, I don't know if there's really a number one mistake. I think I can say that the first thing that jumps into my head is not hiring someone for their intangible skills. And what I mean by that is, I think, when we're trying to hire people, we're really looking we're looking too deeply in their tangible skills, which, at the end of the day, that's important, right? So a lot of times when I'm working with clients or I'm working with my own internal hires, I get wrapped up into making sure that they have 5+ years of experience in recruitment, a bachelor's degree. I've worked for a multinational company. I don't know. So I'm so focused on their actual tangible skills that I'm forgetting that I need to what truly makes someone successful at your company is their intangible skills, right? Their eagerness, their enthusiasm, their ability to handle ambiguity. Things that you can't quantify on a piece of paper. You actually have to get to know them and really understand who they're all about. So that's, for me personally, that's the biggest mistake I've ever made, is not try to look for those intangible skills. Because here's the deal. I can find someone that nails every single tangible asset, every single tangible skill set that I'm looking for in a candidate. However, they could be a complete jerk to work with, and then all of a sudden it doesn't even matter. That's actually even worse. If you hire someone with all these great skill sets, but they're just a jerk and impossible to work with, then it's going to ruin your whole entire company culture because you got one bad apple in there. So that's been my biggest mistake. Some other big mistakes that I've seen is I think some company, when you don't have your employee base completely filled, there's a lot of downtime, right? I think, I've always said that an empty chair or an empty position is going to be your most costly position because you're not working at your full capacity. So what that basically does is that it puts people in a desperate position to try to find a person, right? So then there's a balancing act in trying to find the right person, but do it fast. Because your productivity is going down, but at the same time, you don't want to hire the wrong person. So desperation is one of those things that I think is a big mistake. They just hire for the sake of hiring because they're just so overloaded that they just need someone to help them breathe. So that's something that you want to avoid. As far as some tools, there are, when I was addressing that to Jared, here are something, and Jared, you might want to listen to this too. One of the things that we use, we use a system called Wonderlic, right? It's a pretty cool system. Go and Google Wonderlic. It's basically a pre-employment screening test that shows personality, motivation, capability, and all these kinds of things. Again, we use this as one tool in a tool shed. Basically, what we're doing is it's a puzzle piece, and we're trying to figure out, okay, here's a puzzle piece. Well, their scores turned out right. Let's put that in the puzzle, and then the references panned out, right? Let's put that in the puzzle. The one thing, you can try those systems with the Wonderlic systems, and gives you kind of another snapshot of the predictor of the success that this employee can have in your company. However, try to use all those different things. So how to avoid them? The question is how to avoid them. For me, that big mistake of not looking at the intangible skill sets, get to know. So how to avoid that? During your interview process, get to know them. Basically, what their strengths are, what motivates them, where they want to see themselves in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Kind of really understand how they problem solve things. Ask questions like, tell me about a situation that you had an argument with one of your coworkers, right? So you want to do something like, the reason why you should ask these kind of questions is because it shows them, it shows their behavior, right? If you want to take some time, Google behavior-based interviewing, so you can understand the more intangible stuff. Ask them questions like, how did you handle conflict with a coworker, and how did you handle conflict with a manager? Because those are two different situations, and see what they say. So again, sometimes I don't hire specifically on intangibles, or I don't look at that, and that's kind of bite me in the butt eventually. And then I just got desperate. I just hired whoever. So those are the two things that I try to avoid when I'm hiring. Other than that, that's the questions that we have today. Again, I will always be on unless something happens on Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific. I'm over here in California. Love your questions. Love trying to help you guys out as much as you can. And if you have anything else, direct message me. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. So with that, have a great weekend, guys. See you at the top.